Security Guide.
I was active in the ANC in different portfolios. I grew very close to Jesse Duarte, who was the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC.
Mm-hmm.
And we had discussed at some stage that, I said I might be interested in a diplomatic posting. If there's one available, she must please put my name forward. And then 2017, of course, that call came that they want me to represent South Africa in the diplomatic corps. At the time, I didn't know where.
What was your first security company that you formulated?
Yeah. So about September of 1994, now after Mandela has become president.
So that was a few months later?
Yeah, a few months later, I then had to decide what am I going to do. I mean, I've given my 4 years voluntary service to the ANC.
Wasn't much pay?
No pay.
No pay, so it was purely self-funded?
It was purely because of our commitment. Okay. And that was all of us. I mean,
wow, that's very noble.
The whole
of you
team.
Guys.
Yeah, I mean, we were committed to this liberation of this country for 4 years.
4 years. I mean,
we all gave our time
to all the other guys that actually went out and not getting paid. I mean, I think if you ask anybody work for me for 4 years,
absolutely.
I mean, like I won't work for 4 minutes.
Yeah,
without paying 4 years.
No, if you think back, I'm thinking it's a mom.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's people with character back then.
It was a good experience. We had I mean, just being in Mandela's presence was worth the 4 years.
Was worth the 4 years, yes. Yeah. So
then, now I'm sitting, what am I going to do? Decide to go, well, I've got the security training. I've got all of, quite good training as that. Let me go and start a security company. So initially it was myself and Norman Yengeni, my commander that formed the unit in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We were now going to start this security company.
So it was yours and this...
And Norman Yengeni's, yeah.
Decided to open.
Yeah.
And then you guys formed...
So on a name, the name Sechaba comes from the ANC. In the underground, there was a magazine every month that the ANC would circulate.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the Sechaba.
Okay, that's where the name came from.
That's where the name comes from.
Okay.
The elephant of the logo, I drew with my hands. And I say, Adil is still using the elephant.
Okay.
Comes off a Amarula bottle, man.
Okay.
Yes. It was an Amarula bottle. I just thought the elephant represents strength, intelligence.
Yeah, but I mean, elephant it's fine. It's an animal,
but
and
I took a piece of tracing paper and I sketched over the Amarula bottle. I'm not a drinker. I mean, your viewers must get that.
Yes.
Just get that in mind.
Yes.
But I wanted that elephant.
Okay.
And that was the logo that I designed.
For the first, so your first company, you and your partner.
Yeah, first it was me and Norman.
Yes.
And then Norman integrated into the defense force.
Okay, so he left
He then said, I can't be part of a company. You must carry on.
Okay.
I then discussed this thing with Adil, the brain, and he came on board as in place of Norman.
Okay.
And that's how Adil and I carried on with the business.
Okay, so you were doing more of the guarding side, and he was doing more of the management side. No.
I mean, so I was the CEO.
Okay.
And Adil was the marketing director.
Okay.
Because Adil was good. I mean, I took a backup him. He was good at, and he comes out of that environment.
Okay.
He's previously worked. He was in sales.
Okay, so it's a good idea for your first thing to get somebody that can help you grow the business,
which
is so important. And then from there you got your first client was the Borats. And then from there, what was the next?
Well, from there, Adil brought, I think it was Lewis Stores. It was also just across the road there in Athlone, in Beverly Street, actually.
And back then, how was if you're going to a client, what do you tell them? You want to offer security services? Do you charge them the same price, or because it wasn't regulated?
It was, yeah. So fortunately at the time, I mean, there was no pricing.
So how did you guys work it out at the back then?
So it was initially it was difficult. We didn't know what the going rates were and things,
And to pay the guard.
yeah, there was no regulatory frameworks for all of that. So we
Just did your own
just
thing.
did our own thing. Yeah.
Okay. And the client was actually happy with the service and the amount.
Yeah. I mean, we grew. So by the time Adil and I had gone out different ways, the company had probably something like 400 guards.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that time, was there a lot of other companies opening up?
So new companies, black companies were not emerging, and yeah. So
Okay.
not as it is today. Today it's like you go to a tender briefing, you get 100 companies there.
I think the last I looked at, it was over 10. I think there's over 17,000 companies that's registered. It could be more now. So I think in, there's a lot. I think in Johannesburg alone, there's over 10,000 security companies. Now it's like, everybody wants to open up one. But yeah, so take us back. So you're saying from, but how long were you working, were you running your first company for before you exited?
I think probably 2 years.
2
if
years.
I remember correctly, because in that period,
94,
we
96.
acquired the port of Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
We were approached by, at the time, Grey Security was one of the big security companies in South Africa.
They're still around.
Yeah, it's now called G4S, right?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
so. G4S, yes.
They wanted to do a JV with us. We went to extensive negotiations with them. And then we got an approach from an American company. Right? And that negotiations were carrying on.
Okay, so take us back. At what point did your guards have to start being regulated in terms of the training, where the SOB training came in, with the grades training?
Yeah, I think probably around about...
In that time that you were at Sechaba, or when you at your next?
No, I think when I was in Quatro.
When you moved, so in Sechaba, it wasn't really a thing when you onboarding new.
I think there was some regulation. There was some minimum training that was required.
But there was no how can I say, inspectors that was going around checking up.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I can't remember so far the details, man, because I was more the CEO, the admin guy.
Okay.
Operationally, Adil was more on the operations and the.
Okay, so after 2 years.
But after 2 years,
you
then
decided to exit the company.
Yeah, I went and formed Quatro, and Adil carried on with Sechaba, and he did very well. I mean, he's obviously he's a good salesman, like I said in the beginning, and he's still around. And that's good. I mean, a lot of security companies, 3 years, it's probably maximum, and then they disappear off the face.
Yes,
because it's not an easy industry.
It's
people think it's quick. Any guard can just come and become a security company. Every second guard is starting his company. But they don't survive.
No, they don't.
They don't survive.
Unfortunately, when you're running a security company, people don't understand that, first of all, you have to have some sort of business acumen. You have to have a drive in you.
Absolutely.
You have to have like obviously like your previous partner's sales background, and somebody that is actually disciplined and committed. You have to, if you don't have that hunger in you, that somebody that has courage, that's going out there, can put yourself out there and can handle a lot of pressure, you are not going to survive. It's not about just creating a logo or, just going to C-Runs, paying the $8,000, or having a consultant that's telling you everything. And it is more than that. It's like,
Much more.
After the first year, you have to pay your annual bonus and your annual leave.
Yeah.
You have to have all the unions. So by the time your company grows, the amount of fees that you have to pay Provident Fund, you have to pay medical aid, you have to pay VAT, you have to pay all these different fees. People don't think about it. They only think that no, it's just you seeing the big money and you're going to make that. I always say, like, if you get 100 rand, you're lucky if you're keeping 8 rand, 9 rand out of that 100 rand after all that after all that proper funding and everything is paid, because your margin is very
Yeah,
low.
absolutely.
On
So that's the problem. I mean,
So
the guard
numbers-
sees you getting a massive check, but they don't see the hidden cost that comes through. And I mean, one mistake costs you money.
it's
You
big
know,
money.
a car gets written off while he's on patrol. It costs you money.
Yes.
And those are the hidden costs that's not directly worked into your expense sheet.
So we're not talking anybody out on starting a security company. What we're saying is that any business has its challenges. So
Yeah.
when you go in there, go in with the right
That's right.
frame of mind that it's going to take time and energy and a lot of empty bank accounts, a lot of people. And also what I've noticed is in the security industry is that if me and you start a company, when the one grows, the other one decides that they want to do their own thing. It's like what happened in your situation, and it happens many times. Sometimes it happens to managers. They take people's
Yeah.
contracts,
Yeah.
and there's underhanding going on and all that. So it's a very
No, I can tell you it's blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes.
It's blood, sweat, and tears. And I think people must do their proper research.
yes.
People think you can just pay a security guard 75 and 100, and I don't know what the rates are today.
No, but I mean back
But
then,
yeah,
how was it? So take the listeners back to when you moved on to your next company. So like tell us a little bit about Quatro. How did that come about? Did you have any partners or?
yeah. So Quatro was more or less a family business.
Okay.
It was myself and my brothers
Okay.
that formed the business. Shiraz was with me in there. They had then exited the police services. Remember, they all went for
Yes.
integration, got frustrated by the whites within that process, and then decided to exit. And then I accommodated them.
So
in
how
the
long
new
were you
company.
running Quatro for? And
Quatro, I sold Quatro in 2014.
okay, so you were running it for quite.
Yeah, it was around for a while. We had a very good contract with Telkom. I always wanted to get into the cash in transit business, man. But the barriers of entry there is huge. I mean, one vehicle would cost you a good couple of million and stuff.
So were you actively involved in it up until when? Because obviously, your political career obviously took a shift.
Yeah.
So
So from 2011, I started going back into politics. Getting active in the ANC, and I was then elected into a senior position within the ANC.
So what made you transition from then again going back into like you were in a business?
No, I've always stayed in touch. I've always assisted. I've always been around. I just didn't take up official position. But I was always in the background.
So what made
financial
you decide?
assistance and all of
Was
that.
it more of a calling, or was it?
Yeah. It was.
Somebody asked you, or
I think I just got bored of the security industry, man.
okay. So you said you wanted to change.
I wanted to do something else. Yeah. And naturally, I mean.
So when you joined the ANC, who was the political leader at that time? Was it still?
I was always in the ANC. I was just not maybe an elected official, right?
Okay.
So I was always a member from
But when-
1984. I remained a member throughout.
Okay.
I became in 1990 when the ANC was unbanned. I was the first chairman of the branch in Heidelberg.
Okay.
That was my constituency.
Okay.
I worked there in the advice office in Heidelberg.
So tell the audience, in 2017, you were appointed as the ambassador of Qatar. How did that happen, and how did that come about? So that must have been an interesting time of your journey.
Yeah. So I was active in the ANC in different portfolios. I grew very close to Jesse Duarte, who was the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. And we had discussed at some stage that, I said I might be interested in a diplomatic posting. If there's one available, she must please put my name forward. And then 2017, of course, that call came that they want me to represent South Africa in the diplomatic corps. At the time, I didn't know where.
You were ready to go in.
I was ready. Yeah.
You would have gone to any.
Anyway,
So how did Qatar come up?
yeah. So So we went up to DIRCO, International Relations, for the training. So they gave us 3 months of training, how to be a good diplomat, what the international rules around diplomacy and all of that. And then they announced. So we were a group of, I think, about 16. And then they announced. So they said,
16 candidates.
16 going to different countries.
Okay.
Right? I think every 3 or 4 months they send people out. So it's a contract. You go in there for 4 years, and there's sometimes you get extended for another 4 years, but in a different country.
Okay.
It's very seldom that you stay in one country unless there's exceptional circumstances. So of course, like Ibrahim Rasool spent 2 terms in the US on his stint there, and that was by specific request of Obama that wanted to have him in the US. So anyway, out comes the list. They said, Qatar. Oh, I now think, now where's Qatar? I go look for Qatar on the map, man. Initially, I couldn't find Qatar.
Okay, so you weren't familiar with the country.
No, I knew it's in the Middle East, so I knew geographically more or less where to look. But I didn't realize that Qatar is such a small country. But it's what I asked for a diplomatic posting, and it's now becoming a reality. But of course, they give you a bit of insight into Qatar, its history, its economic standing, its positioning, and all that. And eventually, I found Qatar on the map, and it was a wonderful experience.
So tell us, when you got the announcement, how long, like the planning, just give us a little bit more detail in, like, from the time they told you must go, how long do you prepare, and what's the transitioning period to get there, and a little bit about your first couple of days or weeks when you in Qatar.
Yeah, so the official letter comes in September to say you've now been
signed by the president.
Yeah, you've been approved as one of the going to represent your country. That you must avail yourself for a 3-month period. Right. So that was like a few days. I had to be ready, hop on the flight, go to Pretoria, spend 3 months in Pretoria. And then I finished just end of the year, end of 2017. I finished the course. And then February, I landed in Qatar.
Okay, so
it's packing up
completely,
like
moving over, taking your family and moving.
All of that, getting the diplomatic work done, the paperwork, because so diplomatically, our country sends my name and my CV to the receiving country. They then do their own due diligence, Interpol, criminal records, all of that. And if they're happy with them, then they send what they call the agrima back to South Africa to say, we have no problem with this, you can send your diplomat. So in that period, you also go for top security clearance, which is a polygraph test and all of that. And once you get your clearance, then you're allowed to go and represent your country.
So is it a specific house you get, or is it you find your own place, or is it?
No. So they, because there was an ambassador there before me, I moved into that house that he stayed in.
Okay.
And then if in my case, the previous ambassador stayed in a hotel. And I didn't like an hotel environment. I had a son, he needed to learn to ride bicycle and be outside and play football, etc. So, but I had to wait for that lease to end before I could take up another residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you obviously, is there an embassy in?
Yes.
So you have to be placed at the embassy daily.
Yeah. That was my office. I had to go in every day. I had to meet, and your duties would. It was.
Yeah, take us through a typical day of ambassador. What does it look like?
Well, you Qatar is different, right? Or the Middle East, I should say, is different because people don't really work in the morning. I mean, as an ambassador, you get invited in the evenings to what they call the majlis.
Yes.
Right? So the majlis is at different senior sheikhs' houses, and you go and skinner there, and
okay.
only for males.
Okay. So the females
must stay at home.
Yeah, the
So
Farida.
so most nights I'm out till late at night,
Okay.
sitting in the majlis, and that's where you're really
It's like a relationship building.
yeah. That's where so that's the intel system, man. You know.
But so tell the audience about the Arabs, about their culture and about
Yeah.
respect, and that's how you're honoring them basically
Yeah,
before they bring you in.
So I had a number of business delegations coming from South Africa, and what our people don't understand is the Arab culture is different to South Africa or to normal Western culture. The relationship is not the deal doesn't get done in the boardroom, man. You know, you got to sit in the majlis and drink his tea and have conversation with him about everything else
besides
and
business.
build the relationship. And then when you do the boardroom thing, it's a formality.
Okay.
But unless you haven't done that building of the relationship, it's very difficult for you to go in on one flight and expect to walk out there with a signed deal, man.
Even if you're a valuable proposition, even if you have like something worth gold to them, they won't just do a deal.
It's still not, yeah.
It's not
That
enough.
relationship is of utmost importance. So any businessman wanting to go into the Middle East, go sit into his majlis, man. Go take the time out and spend that time with him. And it's not going to happen on the first trip. I can assure you that. I mean, I've been there for 4 years. I've had many business delegations go through there. And one visit is definitely not going to cut. You're not going to walk out there with a deal.
Okay, so basically, you carry on?
Yeah, so of course you get invited to all kinds of functions, and you get to, and for me what was important for me as an ambassador at the time was that I needed to increase trade between the two countries, and I fortunately, I mean, if you look at the stats in that period that I was there, and I mean it included the COVID period. I managed to increase trade by 147%.
Oh, wow.
Right, which I think is phenomenal coming.
Was it more imports or exports? What was it?
Well, out of South Africa
Okay.
into Qatar.
Okay, so what sort
Because
of
that was the
products?
main thing. I mean, we were buying petroleum products from them, so the balance of trade was very skewed in their favor, and I had to work to make sure that it's more favorable.
Okay.
Right? So that and unfortunately it was in our food products.
Okay.
Qatar is there's no food security. They're trying to do some things on the food security side, but it's a desert. It's a small little country in the desert. So food is important to them. And
So it was a successful run.
absolutely. In my view, in that regard, it was successful. I was there when the Afghanistan negotiations took place. I had very direct access to the Hamas leadership when they was there. Ismail Hania we were friends basically.
Okay.
I used to regularly go and visit them, Dr. Moosa Marzouk,
Okay, so they used to come a lot. So you used to meet all sorts of delegates. And,
all sorts, yeah.
and obviously South Africa, everybody knows us about the struggle, the apartheid.
No,
And
no.
Nelson
So we were
Mandela.
respected.
So we were a respected nation there.
I mean, even the Hamas was very clear, and they said that they had decided as an organization to follow the Nelson Mandela route. So they were willing to sit down and negotiate.
Okay.
That came out of their mouth. I mean, it's not something I had just
They always said they were
conjured
up to they would
They will
negotiate.
always be willing to negotiate, but it must be on a fair basis. You know.
Not what the media always.
Yeah, the media's spinning this.
A narrative that is obviously going to suit them.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so you met different types of leaders from other organizations because Qatar is almost like a central hub for.
So Qatar, yeah. So Qatar is very cosmopolitan. I mean, it's a hub for the globe almost in the Middle East. The Qatari population, the Qatari is a very international kind of guy or woman, right? Because they go study anywhere in the world. They got a very good social system because each Qatari benefits from the gas that they sell. That's their main source of revenue.
Yes, that's what
They
it's
got
for.
education. As long as they want to study, the government will pay for it. When they get married, they get a piece of ground, they get cars.
Wow.
So they're well taken care. There isn't a poor Qatari. I mean, when I used to engage with the bank managers there to just to see what's the potential of having a relationship with South Africa, and we did. Our bank had a representative office in South Africa in Joburg. I mean, in their view, a poor Qatari's got $10 million in his account.
Sure. Oh my word.
Not rands, not
$10 million.
$10. That's a poor Qatari. So again, when the businessmen from South Africa come, they don't understand the concept of that concept because they want to go and borrow 20 million rand. No, that's a joke to a Qatari. He'll tell you, don't waste my time. I'm going to spend the same time on a 20 million rand. I mean, he converts it to dollars firstly. Right?
Yes.
So that's not even a $1 million
It's like, yeah.
deal for him. It's just over $1 million.
Just on $1 million, yeah. So,
so
the appetite was much bigger than what
you needed to take big projects.
Okay.
And unfortunately...
South Africa didn't come up with a lot of...
Yeah, and there was a time in South Africa when they wanted to invest into Transnet.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to invest $3.5 billion. But unfortunately, Transnet couldn't get its act together.
Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't meet requirements.
They didn't meet the requirements.
Okay.
There was a lot of things happening within Transnet. They changed the CEO, they changed the CFO every time.
But for somebody listening to this now that wants to go to Qatar and actually wants to have opportunity, what advice would you give them to actually go there and what for them to actually look for opportunity?
So right now I'm still taking people there.
Mm-hmm. And so they can get in contact with you if there's something.
I mean, I do take delegations there because I've built the relationships.
So you still
still maintained those relationships.
Okay.
I try and go every 6 months.
Okay.
Just to go and sit in the majlis to say that I'm still around and how are you and things like that.
But did it affect when you were no longer ambassador?
Well, the relationship is still there.
Okay.
It's friendship.
Friendships.
Because it's a relationship, It's not a boardroom relationship.
Okay.
It's a friendship,
Okay.
I mean, Sheikh Faizel Tani was one of the big dudes in the Qatar Wealth Fund, Qatar Investment Authority. We're still in contact.
Wow.
Right. But again, the ticket size of the deal.
There must be appetite.
Yeah,
so
when you talk investment authority, we're talking a minimum $100 million.
A billion, over $1 billion
rands. Yeah. Minimum. So that's minimum. What before they even look at it.
Okay, so that's right? that isolates a lot of the
course,
other guys.
There are smaller investors. There's your $20 million investments. There's your 15 and up. I mean, so you do get, but that would be private sector. And then just tell the listeners about what sort of feedback do you have to give to maybe the parliament or the president of so would you give a report back out and how does that work? So I had to have an annual plan to keep. Our government would ask me what is going to be your annual plan because that plan is costed.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's a budget allocated for your plan, and that goes from the hiring of the embassy premises to your car, to your driver, the whole thing.
Okay.
And then also what you're going to spend on like National Day. We always have a National Day. All the countries have their National Day. And if you're going to travel to meet people, all of that. So you must tell them what is your plan and what is the deliverables on your plan.
Okay.
Then there's a 6 monthly review of whether you have achieved.
So who you reporting to directly?
I report to DIRCO.
And
DIRCO. They report to the minister, who obviously then compiles a global report of all its ambassadors that goes to Parliament and to the cabinet.
Okay.
Right.
So you were always succeeding on your
achieving my goals. Otherwise,
KPIs,
it's a non-performance, and I can't understand why that isn't implemented in the country. I mean, it seems like people are just doing what they like.
But on the ambassador,
I had to account for every cent. Okay. I couldn't spend outside. I mean, we had a finance committee in the embassy. It wasn't just for me to decide, like, okay, I'm going to spend 10 rand here now.
Okay.
It was very controlled. And
so if they want to do it, they can do it. is. They have the skill set to actually.
It's part of the policy. I mean, the Finance Management Act regulates.
Okay.
Right? It's just that people just not
following it.
Not following it.
Okay, so that
But in Qatar, I mean, it was definitely every cent was accounted for.
So what was your biggest takeaway from being there and for your time in Qatar?
Personally, it was an eye-opener for me to live in a country where there's practically a zero crime rate.
Wow.
Right? I mean, you can just imagine that experience. No electric fencing, no high gates. People, they are a very wealthy nation. I go to a Juma on a Friday, the Porsche standing there, the Ferrari with the key in it, it's idling because it's 45 outside. He doesn't want to come out of the mosque and still sit in a hot car.
Okay.
So you can actually go choose if you want to, which one you want. If that was in South Africa. You know?
Completely different mindset.
Completely different. I mean,
wow.
and that's actually challenging when you come back because you become so used to. I mean, I'm a diplomat. I live in a big house, but my door's never locked. I don't have a security guard outside my house.
Mm.
No?
So the safety and security.
Absolutely. For the family, sure.
It's a big shift in change.
It's a massive shift. Because now you come back, you walk in the mall. My wife, I got a reminder. Please hold your bag over your shoulder and clutch it, man. She puts the bag in the trolley and walk down the aisle and go look at the... You're back in South Africa now. It's not Qatar.
You see on the social medias how they intercepting the bags and intercepting everything. Just become professionals in that.
I mean, I have a personal experience where I left my wallet on the table in the food court in one of the malls. And
so that TikTok videos that we're seeing you can leave, it's not fake, it's real.
No, it's real.
Were you leaving your stuff in there?
My experience, I left my wallet. I went to the hotel. I realized I didn't have my wallet. I came back to the and the wallet was still there. There were people sitting and eating around my wallet, but the wallet was still everything in it. Because the rule is if you find somebody's things, you must go look for that person to give it back to him.
So nobody wants to touch it.
So nobody wants to touch because it's another responsibility. And people take that seriously. For the 4 years I was there was one murder. And that was like running for months.
Sure.
Because a husband and a wife had a tiff and the husband shot the wife. Okay. For 4 years, one murder. Yeah, you get it every day. It doesn't even get to the media. I mean, it's not even newsworthy anymore.
No, we desensitize and whatever.
So that to me was an amazing experience. I mean, although they have a monarchy and no democracy, they have freedom, individual freedom. Now I'm sitting and I wonder, he's voting for me. That making that cross every 5 is really freedom. It's not. We're living like prisoners in our own homes. You know. So that awakening, that was very profound to me.
Okay, so they obviously they don't have like a democracy here, like we can obviously change a party.
No, the Emir is the ultimate.
He's the ultimate.
He makes it. He's a young man. He's a bright man. They did very well because
of the gas.
The gas, yeah. And the good thing is everybody benefits.
Yes.
There's no poverty. There's not a shack. There's not a beggar on the street anywhere.
Wow.
In that country.
And obviously, so then poverty, I mean, then crime would not be there. I mean, crime is born out of poverty, out of desperate situations.
The other reason is, I mean, if you do commit crime, they are harsh.
Okay.
I mean, most the 300,000 Qataris, 2.3 million expats, right? Servicing the 300,000 Qataris. The minute you do anything wrong, you get sent home.
But was there any South Africans that got into trouble there?
Yes.
Like what sort of
drugs?
Drugs.
Oh, I'm sure they're still sitting there because they're very harsh on drugs.
So they were trying to bring drugs.
Yeah.
For themselves or to resell?
No, I don't know. I mean, somebody flew in with 17 kilograms of cannabis.
No, that's
I mean, it can't be for himself.
no, that can't be for himself.
Right? And the normal stories, no, I didn't know. Somebody said I must carry this bag. I brought this bag.
South Africans.
South Africans, yeah. Even women, I mean, with cocaine in the jewelry and all of these kind of things.
And then they come to you and then they say, this is
well, it's part of of the service to go and visit all our South
Inmates.
Africans in prison to go see if they're okay, if they not being ill-treated and all of that. So I had to every 2 or 3 months go and visit all.
So was it regularly happening where they
Yeah. I mean, at the time we had about 5 people,
South Africans,
in prison,
all drug
drug related. There was what they're also very strict on is debt. If you don't pay debt, you go to jail.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not like you just get liquidated.
No, you just liquidate. Yeah. No, their debt is a crime.
Okay.
Right. And South Africans get there and easy money. You get quick money from the bank. It's not a difficult thing. And they still work on checks.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I was flabbergasted when I came to the
Still
embassy.
checks.
I still had to sign a check. It's like antiquated, man. We don't do this anymore. The world has moved on.
But they still like their checks.
They want post-dated checks.
Okay.
So you pay your rent. You pay 6 months. You give him 6 months checks.
Okay.
But then you lose your job.
If that check bounce.
If the check bounce, my bro, the first thing they do is you're not allowed to leave the country.
Okay.
Right? Then you get arrested. Then you must sit.
What's the time period?
It's different depending on the amount of debt
on the
and
judge.
all of that. Yeah, depends
And,
also on
and-
it's. For instance, I go sit in court. One of our guys are appearing. Everything is in Arabic, no translation. No translation.
If you had chat GTP, you throw it in there. It'll translate
I
everything.
must introduce that because the one guy got 17 years
For
the cannabis.
wow. So that means he must still be there. Then.
And we didn't even know that he got 17 years because everything is in Arabic.
Sure.
I had to send my Arabic guy to court after the sentence.
He didn't know.
He didn't even know. I didn't even know.
He was probably high. on his own supply.
17 years, imagine. Yeah? And that guy didn't think, he didn't
He
ever.
didn't think. He thought he was like, hey, listen, they're just talking some cartoon language.
He then claimed afterwards, now he's got HIV and all of this. But they did the test, he was HIV free. So,
Yeah,
not mentioning names.
yeah. No. We,
so
it's
yeah.
anonymous.
I think they implement if you commit a crime, you must pay the price, and they very strict with that. So people are just too afraid to do anything, man.
Okay.
Because if you do a small little thing, you get deported. You get home, you lose your job immediately, kind of thing. And there's no, I mean,
zero tolerance.
zero, and you can't go and there's no unions there.
Yeah.
Go fight for me I slept on the job or something.
Yeah. There's nothing.
That Qataris got complete control over you.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a bit unfortunate because they also become spiteful sometimes.
Can use it for their advantage.
They do. I mean, there was, just to give you an example, and that's why I'm always telling people when you go and find a job in the Middle East, do your homework properly, man. Don't just jump on the first flight and make sure that everything is in place and that make sure you're going to a good company.
Because the rights is not like we have rights.
No.
Of
And South Africans think that it's the same. It's not. There you must understand you got 80% less rights than which you would have here.
Okay.
Right? 80%. It's not a 50-50.
Yes. So you're winning on the pay structure and the opportunity and that, but when it comes to your normal Department of Labor rights, it doesn't.
Yeah, no Labor Relations Act and anything like that.
Okay, so their
Doesn't
constitution
exist.
works differently there. So it's something to think about. I mean, obviously, if your line manager decides that, listen, your time is up, time is up.
Yeah, but let me say on the positive side, South Africans are well regarded there. There are many South Africans that doesn't even consider ever coming home. They
So
have a
that's-
good life. They fitted into the, and even non-Muslims. I mean, they have settled down already. They come to grips with the environment.
The weather? How did you find the weather? The heat?
Yeah, I mean, summer is extremely hot, 45, 50 degrees.
So how, as a South African,
So
do you get...
you don't go out. You get in your car, it's AC. You go into the mall, it's AC. You go into the hotel, it's AC. You
So
go
you
into your
never-
home, AC.
So you're never out actually in
You
the...
very if you there's no you can't. When I just arrived, in February, right? I arrived in the early hours of the morning. My glasses I couldn't see through it.
Sure. So it was like perspiring of sweat.
Yeah, it just misted up,
Misted up.
with the humidity. So, but in winter again, beautiful. It's like our summer.
Okay.
Their winter is
As
typical South African summer,
Okay.
right? 25 to 28 degrees Celsius. Everybody's out. The malls are open.
Nice.
The beaches, people are just enjoying.
What
The
month
desert
that-
was lovely.
That's June, July time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's the time. No, that's interesting, man. So I mean, it looks like you had a fantastic time there. Everything. So you would have liked to have the second year, but then COVID happened. So how did things change in
Yeah.
COVID?
So COVID was, and they were very strict in COVID. I mean, when South Africa shut down eventually with COVID, we had a number of South Africans on the airport at Doha International. To be exact, there was 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were stuck in the international lounge.
Okay.
They were in transit. Qatar had already shut down, so nobody could come in. We didn't allow them to fly home because there was no flights running. Most of the flights were grounded. But again, because of my good relationship with Akbar Al-Bakr, who was the group CEO of Qatar Airways,
Mm-hmm.
he allowed me to fly those people to South Africa on cargo flights.
Wow.
I don't know how
He made
a cargo flight looks inside or where they sat, but they were stuck on the airport for 8 days,
Sure.
not on a bed in the lounge to sleep. And we took them some food and stuff regularly.
All South Africans.
All South Africans, yeah. And on about the 8th or the 10th day,
They managed to go.
they agreed that I can put them on a cargo flight
Okay.
and bring them home. And they were then in quarantine for 2 weeks. And then
All right.
but
and then you...
but the COVID period was difficult because, and again, I mean, we managed through Qatar Airways to repatriate 8,500 South Africans from all over the world. Because Qatar Airways was one of the only airlines that was still flying to about 40 destinations during that time.
Okay.
So we collected them in all over and brought them to Doha. And from Doha, we'll fill up an aircraft back to South Africa.
Okay. And then when did your term come to an end?
2022. So exactly 4 years.
2022.
Yeah,
So-
I landed there in February 2018, and I arrived back in South Africa in February 22.
Okay, so you never came to come visit South
Yeah, no, I was in and out.
in and out.
My
but for short-
brother passed away in COVID. My sister passed away in COVID. So I was
Just-
able to come back and
just come in and
Yeah.
out and whatever. But the majority of
and
the
I
4
came home.
years.
Yeah, I
you-
spent there. And I did quite a bit of traveling in the Middle East. I did Oman, I did Kuwait, I did Iran. Yeah, and I obviously went to Europe as well.
Oh, nice, man. So it was a good time for you, eh?
Yeah.
So tell the listeners, how does it look when your term ends in as being an ambassador for South Africa? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a contract.
Okay.
You're on a 4-year contract. And my contract then obviously came to an end in February 2022. And then it's again pack up all your stuff that you've accumulated over the 4 years and ship it back home. The Qataris gave me a very, very beautiful send-off. They were actually sad that I'm leaving. I mean, I still go and visit Qatar regularly, as I told you. and they miss me.
Yes, yes, yes.
The one thing, so number one, I'm a Muslim, so I easily fitted into the culture. Many African or most African ambassadors are not aware of the culture. So it was a more easier acceptance for them to accept me into the circles. So I've got a lot of good connections there. I got a lot of good friends there.
Obviously, I mean,
And
must be deep.
yeah, and I still go and make sure that I keep that relationships.
So when you're coming back, do you meet any officials here? Or is it just
No. So coming back is like an end of a contract.
End of a
I
contract,
go
yeah.
give in my diplomatic passport at Durko.
and that's it?
You don't hear from them again.
That's it. And then okay, so there's no like report. That's it. Okay, and then they obviously the new one.
Yeah, no, you leave the report in Qatar. You do a handover report.
Okay.
So the next ambassador comes, he goes with it. But
So-
that's what the everybody in the embassy contributes to that.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thanks for that. But now tell us post your ambassador role now from
Yeah.
2022 up until date. What are you spending your time?
So there's two things I do. I'm still involved. I'm involved in a consulting business.
Okay.
So
Tell us a bit more.
yeah. So we do. We about 5 of us in the business, and each one has got a strength. My strength is Qatar and the Middle East. We've got one in Saudi, one of the guys. We've got a lady involved, and then we also well plugged into Kuwait and Oman.
Okay, so the Middle East.
So the Middle East we don't do much in Dubai because everybody flies to Dubai, and
So give us a little bit more detail about your consulting, like what.
So we take business people. I mean, I think in about 6 monthly, I take people that wants to go and connect with people in Qatar. Like I said, I mean, it's a relationship thing, so I leverage of the relationship that I've got to plug people in. I don't do the deals for them. I just open the door for them. They do their own pitches because I'm not a salesman. I'm not selling somebody else's business. They must go and sell whatever they're trying to sell.
And if
on
they're
their
not
own.
successful, there's nothing to do with you.
I mean, they pay my
Your
fee
fee.
is going, and I have a daily rate,
Okay.
and that's the risk they take.
Okay.
But the relationships is there. If their project makes business sense, then of course Qataris are always looking for opportunities.
Okay. So
And-
the countries again is Qatar,
Saudi, Oman,
Oman,
and Kuwait.
Kuwait. Okay. Okay. So that's your consulting side, and then
Yeah. Then when I came back, I mean, of course, before I left, I had started a company called Blackstone.
Mhm.
But because I then got the offer from the government, I had to exit.
Blackstone meaning a security.
A security company, yeah. Blackstone Security Services.
Yes. Okay.
Right. At the time, the idea was just to do special events. My brother and I, because he's been doing the stadium security for a while, and he understands how that works. Worked at CITCC and all of that. Because I went to Qatar and I didn't want to be involved in any other private business.
Your sole focus was obviously the ambassador.
The ambassador role, yeah, which I did. When I came back, I then went back into the company and we re-energized the company. So we are presently doing events,
event
and
security.
we're now trying to venture into guarding again, just
Okay.
as a base. I mean,
As a base,
it's
yes.
From Kops here,
Yes.
but many of us don't realize it's actually a headache business.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I remember at one stage in Quatro, we had 3,000 guards
Wow.
across the country. I had an office in PE and an office in Gauteng. So I spent a week in PE, a week in Gauteng, and 2 weeks in Cape Town.
So what changes have you seen over the years compared to back then to now?
Well, I think it's more difficult now. I mean, there's much more companies,
More competition,
more competition, more regulations.
more regulation,
uh,
and the barrier to entry is a bit harder.
much harder. I mean, 8,500 rand now to register a company.
Yes.
Right. I think when I registered, it was like 700 rand or something.
And then
back in
every
that
year
day.
you have to pay the fees.
Yeah, and now you got Provident Fund and you got medical aid and all of that.
And obviously the training, obviously you have to send your guards for training now. They have to be CIRA accredited, and if they want to do, so it's a lot more.
Yeah, it's a lot more. And maybe my brother still got the appetite for guarding. I don't really have it, I can tell you. I mean, I used to get people phoning me at 3 o'clock in the morning, hey, you must come now. Because I was the CEO. I want to see you now because your guard is sleeping.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
yeah. I don't have the energy for that.
To get you, that's,
but he feels that it's a good basis for just to keep the company balanced.
yes.
Because as you know, I mean, the special events is also seasonal. I mean, in the winter, there's not many events happening.
And any CPO work?
In Quatro, we had a division.
Mm-hmm.
We did like Whitney Houston. We did the Cricket World Cup. Even now in Blackstone, I mean, we did the Netball World Cup, for instance.
Oh,
We did the
yes,
Rugby
nice.
Sevens. We did the Jazz Festival now. That's
Okay,
past.
nice.
So it's not the VIP protection stuff. It's not close quarter protection stuff. It's more the events, especially the events security.
Okay.
And my brother does the accreditation and other stuff as well, and safety and stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Faisal, that has been an amazing story, and I wish you all your best, and hopefully we will have you soon to discuss some
Inshallah.
other matters and see where you're at, and all the best in Blackstone. Yeah.
No, thank you for having me, man. I felt like I've done a bit of offloading today.
Yeah, I know, more like a therapy session.
Therapy. I think you must send the bill. I mean,
no, it's been really a good experience for us. Also asking the questions and learning about. So I'm sure the listeners would when this episode comes out, they would see what we've experienced. And obviously Nigel, they're sitting at the back. We were all smiling, and it was joyful to learn about the struggle and Mandela. So it was really unpacked. So guys, if you guys didn't listen to the show and you didn't, there's going to be some nuggets in here. So stay tuned and catch us in the next episode. Till we meet again, this is a security guide.